Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today is going to be a little bit different. I have a nice face shot, got my mic, got a little piece of paper with an actual script this time, and even some lights, because I am going to sit here the whole time and talk about film. It's the first time that I've done an episode that isn't directly associated to a roll of film. Today we're going to talk about Portra 800, Lomo 800, and Cinestill 800T, and I'm just going to share examples from all three of them and just talk about them. This is the culmination of my 800 ISO speed comparison. It's a comparison that I wanted to do months ago by shooting all three film stocks in San Francisco, but that never happened. It proved to be challenging. Check out my last two videos if you're interested. But this one, we're just gonna focus on a little comparison. So let's get into it. I have a little script right here. It has all of the points that I wanna cover. So I don't know, this is new for me, but I'm just gonna kind of read off of it, talk a little bit, show some pictures. It'll be great. So the first point, the main thing that I want to get across today is that all three of these film stocks are fantastic. I would happily shoot any one of them. They're at the top of my list. I love each of these film stocks, but we're doing a comparison today, so I'm going to dive into some little nitty-bitty details in each of them and try to let you guys know what I think. Just keep in mind, they are all fantastic film stocks. But let's do a comparison. I'm going to frame this comparison so it's about how I choose film, what I look for in film stocks. And what I look for are four main things, and that is the color, just the colors that the film produces, the ISO, or how long can I shoot the film stock, then grain and sharpness. So these qualities or these traits are probably super different for everybody, but these are what I really care about, and I figured it would be a nice, good structure to just talk about each one of them and how the various film stocks look. So the first one is color. And the obvious winner, I hate to say obvious winner because I did say they're all fantastic, but the obvious winner is Portra 800. I think it has the best colors. It's super well balanced. It has a really nice color palette. It does all the colors justice. It doesn't really skew into one too much or kind of forget about one. I think it just represents all of the colors really great. I think that Cinestill can lean a little blue-green, and then it has crazy vibrant reds, which is awesome in its own right, but I'm gonna say that Portra wins the color situation just because of its really good color consistency. Yes. Then Lomo, same thing as Cinestill. I think it favors red a little bit too much, and it's just super saturated to the point that the colors become a little bit unrealistic, which not a bad thing by any means, but I just think Portra 800 is the most accurate as far as colors go. Next up is ISO, and they're all 800 ISO films, so you're probably like, what a stupid point, they're all the same, which is fair. This point doesn't really matter that much, but I will add that I like to shoot Cinestill more at 400 ISO in the daytime. In the nighttime it's great at 800, but in the daytime I think 400 ISO helps let a little bit more light in, and it helps lift up some of the warmer tones so it doesn't become so green-blue. But that's a little point. They're pretty much all the same as far as ISO goes. I think maybe Portra and Lomo are a little bit farther ahead just because they're fantastic at 800 ISO, but Cinestill not too far behind. So the next one is grain, and I put grain third on my list of important film things because I love grain. I feel like it depends on who you are, on how you see grain, because I like having a lot of grain, so I like the high ISO films whereas somebody that doesn't like a lot of grain might like the low ISO films. But I love grain. I love when an image has grain and you can tell that it was taken on film. So for me, when I'm looking at this category, I'm just going to say which film has the more noticeable and pleasing grain. And to be honest, all three of them have fantastic grain. You can tell the grain's there, it's not overpowering, it looks good. So what I had to do to really dive into this and figure out, just for comparison's sake, just for you guys, figure out one winner is I printed out a little section from a vertical image from each roll, from each film stock, and then printed those out on little 4x6 pieces of paper, took a little magnifying glass, looked through them, looked at them up close, looked at them far away, and even after printing them out, I still think they all look the same. But if you must ask, I think Lomo 800 had not necessarily nicer grain, it just had good grain that was more noticeable, if that makes sense. Cinestill 800T had plenty of grain, but the grain structure was a little bit uneven, maybe mushy or smooth. I don't know, I'm gonna be showing close-ups, you can kind of judge for yourself, but the Cinestill 800T grain looked a little bit smooth and kind of inconsistent. I didn't love it, but it still looks good. The Portra 800 grain was surprisingly not that noticeable for an 800 ISO film. I'll talk about sharpness later. I think that this point really helped Portra 800 with the sharpness, but it just means that the Portra 800 grain is a little bit smaller than Lomo, and I like to be able to see the grain, and I think in Lomo you can see the grain doesn't ruin the image, so I'm gonna give it the win in this category. But I mean, it's like splitting hairs for this. And that's kind of the same thing with the fourth category, which is sharpness. They all look plenty sharp. If you're looking at them from a distance, they're fantastic. If you're looking at them on Instagram, it's probably not going to matter at all. But we're doing a comparison, so I went back to the prints, looked closely, tried to pick out the differences, and in this category, I think that Portra 800 might have it. It's just a little bit sharper, and that might be because there's a little bit more definition or like contrast between the lights and darks in the detail areas. I'm not like a pixel peeper, so I don't even know what I'm describing, but it did seem like Portra 800 was a little sharper. Lomo 800, plenty sharp, and then Cinestill 800T, also plenty sharp. I think maybe a little bit less sharp than Lomo, but again, we're just comparing for fun at this point. They're all really sharp, where Portra has a slight edge. So if we take into consideration my little comparison of the four main factors, my ranking, if I was forced to pick a ranking, would be Portra, Lomo, Cinestill. The other thing that I should say, which is actually kind of a huge thing, but it's something that I didn't include in my physical qualities comparison, and that is how each film handles different situations. And depending on what you like to shoot, it might change how you rank these films. Because obviously the main situation that would come up when comparing anything to Cinestill 800T is shooting at night. And that is a situation where 800T just wins. I would say hands down, it's way better than Portra 800. I haven't shot Lomo 800 at night, but I'm pretty sure Cinestill 800T would be much better. The blue tones, I think, help a ton with shadows. Kind of covers up the shadows, smooths it up, makes them a little bit more uniform, and then the halations and the bright reds really shines if there's any kind of light source in the image. So Cinestill 800T at night, hands down, that's the situation for 800T. And if you like shooting at night, 800T might be the top of your list. But another really important situation is taking pictures with people. And I think when it comes to taking pictures of people, Portra 800 is much better for that situation, just because it has a much more balanced color palette. I think it handles skin tones a lot better. What I've noticed with Lomo and Cinestill is that they have a lot of red undertones in skin tones, and that can be a little bit unflattering or unrealistic for taking pictures of people. So if that's the situation at hand, Portra 800 would do better. And then while I was writing this point, I was kind of racking my head to think of a better situation for Lomo, and I just kept thinking like any situation for Lomo, Portra 800 would be a little bit better, but I landed on one, and it's a pretty minor situation, but that's if it's an overcast day. I think Lomo 800 is better because it has a ton of built-in saturation, so it can really bring up the colors if it's a little bit gray or dull out. Which is a situation to consider, but also Portra 800 plus saturation in Lightroom could accomplish the same thing. But I just want to do Lomo service in this, and you know, different situations for different film stocks, right? I don't know. That's just a big thing that I thought would be good to talk about. So the next point. My rating, like I said before, was Portra, Lomo, Cinestill, and that's because the situations where I want an 800 ISO film speed is all situations. I don't know, just bear with me. What I want in 800 ISO is a film that can do anything, and I give Portra 800 the #1 spot for that just because it has great colors, it's super consistent, it's plenty sharp, you can shoot it day and night, and it has really nice grain. So for me, it ticks off all the boxes, and it's a film that I can confidently shoot in pretty much any situation. I could load it at the beginning of the day, take it out with me, take some pictures of my friends, take some pictures of some nice detail shots, landscapes, shoot into twilight, you name it. I think Portra 800 just does a really good job, and since I'm value flexibility and versatility, it comes out as #1. #2, I would give to Lomo 800, and that's because it's almost just as good as Portra, it's just a little bit too saturated. Normally I love saturation, and I would never knock a film because it's too saturated, but since we're comparing with Portra, and I'm just looking for anything to compare at this point, I think Lomo 800 falls just below Portra. And then Cinestill 800T, I'm giving the 3rd spot because I'm not a huge night photographer. I like taking pictures at night, but when I do that and when I choose Cinestill to take pictures at night, I'm doing it as like a specialty film, so it doesn't become so much as a flexible do-everything film stock, if that makes sense. Whenever I load Cinestill, I take a minute to think about what I'm going to shoot that day or what I want to shoot with that film, and that's just a thought that I don't really have to have with Portra or Lomo. So for that reason, it's lower on the list. Also, another thing that I've mentioned that puts Cinestill low on the list is the fact that it has halations, and that's just because the halations could potentially ruin a photo. I've only had like 3 pictures where the halations did ruin the photo, but something to consider, and definitely if you're looking for a film that you could take out and maybe shoot with people, then yeah, Cinestill might not be the best choice for that. But that's not saying that it's not a fun film. I feel like I'm trashing on Cinestill here, and I don't want to trash on Cinestill. It's a fantastic film. I've taken some awesome shots with Cinestill, and I have gone an entire day shooting only Cinestill, and it's been great. We're just comparing some giants, some fantastic film stocks, and I'm looking for anything. And there's just some stuff to make Cinestill not as versatile as Lomo. But again, if you're a night photographer, this won't matter. You're probably not looking for versatility. You're probably looking for a film that's great at night, and Cinestill will be the top of your list. Like I said earlier, we have definitely entered opinion territory. These are all just opinions. It's all super subjective, but I don't know. Maybe it's interesting to watch. Maybe you're trying to pick out between these 3 and you've never shot them. If that's the case, I would say go Portra. It's my favorite. But if you have shot all three, let me know what you think about them. And if you hate that I kind of trashed on Cinestill, I'm sorry about that. So that's pretty much all that I have to say. I have a sixth point here, and that sixth point is thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you like this type of video. I will do more if you're interested in this kind of talking show pictures, but if not, tell me that too and I'll just go shoot some more expired film. So yeah, that wraps it up. I think that's everything I wanted to say. So yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking through this type of episode, and I'll see you on the next one.